Hello, bowling fans. This is Dustin J. Marquez coming to you, taped as always from the gem along the Colorado River, Laughlin, Nevada, bringing you a very special New Year's Eve edition of your favorite bowling show, Bowling Evolved. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, the co-host with the most, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Eric Forkel. Eric, how are you doing this wonderful, wonderful New Year's Eve?
Happy New Year! There you go. I don't have any party things right now, so I'm just going to say Happy New Year!
Well, by the time people listen to this, I'm sure it'll be 2014 already, but it's been a very interesting year across the board, not just for us, but for bowling in general, and I think this would be a good time to have a recap show, maybe kind of talk about some of the stories that were frequented throughout the year and kind of let people know what's going on.
Sounds good. I'm ready to get started. We'll try to catch all the highlights and the lowlights and do the whole thing.
Well, let's start with the biggest point coming off of one of our most recent shows. A lot of people have asked us, where is Part 2 and Part 3 with Mr. Tom Clark, Commissioner of the PBA? Well, I guess there's no easy way to put this, but we were asked specifically not to publish Parts 2 and Part 3 for a variety of different reasons, and it is at this point that we think that it's probably best that we don't put it up, not because there was anything necessarily bad or controversial, but the topics that were discussed are kind of out of date at this point because of the technical issues we had with getting the shows up on YouTube, which, by the way, my first get things off my chest, YouTube, I love it and I hate it all at the same time, Eric. I don't understand why you can't load certain videos or certain clips that aren't copyrighted, but apparently they come up as copyrighted with YouTube these days.
Yeah, for some reason, YouTube's, obviously they have their reasons, and I guess you got to take it up with Google, because I think Google runs YouTube or something like that, so send a letter to Mr. Google.
That'd be an interesting plan, but yeah, that's pretty much what it was, and we would be very happy to put up Parts 2 and Part 3, but because that the topics that we discussed have pretty much come and gone, which we talked about a little bit further in our show, it was decided between the parties that probably best not to post what was said at the time, and honestly, I'm a little disappointed, but of course we're going to honor the wishes, and we hope that everyone involved, wish them a great new year.
Well, that's all we can do. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not here to piss anybody off, even though sometimes I do, I guess, by some of the things I say. But we only want the best for everybody, and it appears that this subject needs to just kind of go away a little bit, so it will go away. But I'm sure we'll have a few more interesting topics to talk about, especially next year, because there's always something going on that's controversial or worth talking about, and our goal is to bring it forward. We may not be top investigative reporters, but we still can discuss things and have our opinion on something. Like I said, I'm no journalist, and I'm no investigative reporter. I ain't Geraldo. I'm just Eric. And we're going to talk, and we're just going to BS about our conversations about certain items and do the best we can with it. But hopefully some people will learn some things from it. And that's all we can do.
Totally agree with you. Although I will say back in the early 90s, you were rocking the Geraldo mustache. So I do want to throw that out there.
I still have the ability to rock it now. Unfortunately, I need a little help in that area. It doesn't come naturally anymore. That's all I will say.
As long as you're not doing the bathroom selfies like he did this last year, that's all I'm saying. So
no. Negative. That's a big negative.
But yeah, that's with all joking aside, I completely agree with Eric, and I have said this on many of occasions, and we've discussed it on the show. But I appreciate what people want from Bowling Evolved, and I appreciate what people might think we are. However, the fact of the matter is that we're not a show that is investigative journalism. I've never proclaimed myself to be an investigative journalist. I've always proclaimed myself to be a bowling journalist, to be an opinion columnist, to be someone that likes writing about bowling and to share different viewpoints and ideas from the different people involved with the sport. From my earliest days, as Eric, you well know, as you were a big part of it, my writing with What Happened to Bowling was about that exactly, looking at different controversial subjects that have happened in bowling over the last 30 to 40 years and looking a little deeper into the people behind that. first story that comes to mind, and Eric, I'm sure you remember this very well, was a conversation I had with Mr. Steve Cooper in the invention of the Excalibur bowling ball. And these were things that, in my opinion, were very much what changed the game to what it is today. Now, again, is that necessarily investigative journalism? I don't believe so. It was more about finding, in that case, finding Steve Cooper, who really hadn't been on the bowling scene in a decade, and letting him kind of talk about where he saw bowling was and what happened to it over, from the invention of reactive urethane through the modern era and what had come about. Bowling evolved, realistically and honestly, was built on the same principle. We are about talking about bowling yesterday, bowling today, and bowling tomorrow, and being the guys that, when you're at the bar having a beer after league, this is what we talk about. When you're in the pro shop talking to your tech and complaining about whatever is going on in the bowling world, that's what we talk about. We want to be the guys that, are the ones in the bowling center. We're not trying to sugarcoat what bowling is or what bowling was. We're just being honest and sharing what we see. And to me, giving people that forum and doing that justice to our fans is what I'm all about. I'm pretty sure it's what you're all about, Eric, and it's what Bowling Evolved's all about.
That pretty much sums it up. It's just talking about the game that we love and the game that keeps evolving, so to speak.
Hey.
And, even though it does evolve, certain things do stay the same, and it just has its place now, and you just have to do the best you can with it to talk about it. But there's always something to discuss, whether it's good news or hopefully a lot of good news. But most of the time, it seems to be kind of bad news because that seems to be what it's all about, And for every little bit of good news, we always seem to have some bad news, and all we can do is talk about it and offer our humble opinions. Mine from spending 15 years bowling for a living and spending the rest of my time trying to figure things out to better the game for not only myself but the people who come visit me in the shop. So there's a lot of knowledge, Again, it's opinions. I have an opinion. You have an opinion. Many other people have opinions on this game and the sport. So you're always gonna, you're always gonna get somebody's opinion. That's just the way it is. And a lot of times it's better just to agree to disagree, because it's hard to get everybody on the same page because everyone seems to think that they know what's best. Obviously, people do the best they can to make things better. And whether it's the PBA or the USBC or your local bowling centers with their, there's always someone who thinks they have a better way of doing it, but unfortunately it just doesn't seem to this doesn't happen, because sometimes I think it's a losing battle, but you have to keep the faith and hope that things will get better, that there will be a future in this sport of bowling.
I sincerely hope you're right, Eric, and I never have been a naysayer. I've never been a doubter of what bowling can be. In fact, that's why I continue to do it, and that's why I love it so much. The problem is, and as you well know, is there's so many people that are in this for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. And what I say by that, or what I mean by that is that they intentionally look for things to criticize, or they intentionally look for things to demean, or they don't share different viewpoints. They try to make everyone believe in just one thing, and to me, bowling is not black and white, and I don't think it was black and white in your heyday, Eric, and I don't think it was black and white when I was bowling, in today's game. I think bowling is a lot of shades of gray, and I mean that from both a proprietor standpoint and from a competitive standpoint. I think that there's a lot of people that want you to believe that there is a right and wrong answer, and I don't think there is. I think there's a lot, as you said, a lot of opinions, a lot of people that think they know what's best, but ultimately it's going to boil down to what's going to fall into the cracks and what's going to stick.
And right, and all you can do is hope that the industry, instead of shrinking, the industry would grow, because if it grows, it creates more job opportunity, number one, and it creates more involvement, and it creates a future. If the industry just keeps shrinking, then that's not good. You lose jobs, you lose the future, and then, all you have is just recreational bowling, which I guess if you're a proprietor and you can fill your bowling center with recreational bowling, you're happy. But, people who like to bowl tournaments and maybe scratch bowlers and any kind of competitive bowlers, they don't want to hear that kind of talk,
Yeah, absolutely not. Of course, that's going to bring us into one of our little recaps here, and I figured we'd take about 5 different topics, Eric, and just kind of give a summary viewpoint on them here at the end of the year. And
Okay.
I know one topic that has been beat to death, and we've talked about it, and now we've seen it on TV, is the blue oil. And now that we've had a chance to reflect and actually see how it worked, Eric, what's your opinion now on the blue oil?
I thought it was interesting. I think I don't know, I think as a teaching device, I guess it could be kind of cool. Like let's say at a place like Kegel, where they do all kinds of teachings and seminars, and people go there to learn. I think for them, I think that would be something like that is fantastic. But I'm just curious to know if people would want to have blue oil when they bowl league. Would they like to see the oil on the lane? Would they not? That might be something that we should post to our 6 or 7 listeners and see if would they be interested in having blue oil as for their league shot?
It would be definitely an interesting way to look at the lanes and to kind of expand on the game a little bit. I know after watching the blue oil on TV and kind of getting more of a feel for what they were trying to do, I still kind of maintain the same opinion. I still think that it would have been better suited to have it more as a segment thing as opposed to actually being what they shot on during the tournament. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel.
Well, I mean, yeah. How can I say that? I mean, I think there's a little bit of show involved. I think there's a coolness to it that it looks kind of neat. And if you listen to what most of the players said, that they didn't pay attention to where the blue oil was or wasn't. They played it like they normally would. They feel, they have a feel for where the condition is, how they just go off of their ball motion. They're not really trying to pay attention to where there's maybe a blue oil or no oil. They're not going by that because, I think on the certain areas of the lane it didn't show up as much. So maybe you thought there'd be really dry out there and you pitched the ball out there and the ball wouldn't hook enough out there, and you're like, well, there's no blue oil out there. Why is the ball not hooking? So you don't use it that way. It was just more. I think the players did what they normally do. They just go with their natural instinct of what the lane is doing, and they adjust.
I agree with that as well. And I don't know. I look forward to seeing what comes of this. And everyone's going to have their opinions. You're going to have the purists. You're going to have the radicals. You're going to have the people in between. And who knows? Maybe this will be the wave of the future.
Maybe, but I just can't see it in that regard. I think it was. I don't want to say it was a gimmick, but I think it was kind of interesting, a kind of a novelty maybe. But again, maybe I am just so darn old school that I just don't. I think it's okay. I think it's just for show. I don't know. I just think it's something to just talk about, and it's kind of a wow thing. Like, wow, that was kind of cool. Next, go to the next thing, you know what I mean?
Sure. Well, and speaking of moving on to the next thing, another topic that was brought up to my attention, actually today as a matter of fact, someone had mentioned it from a previous show, when we had Mr. Dick Allen on the show. Eric, I'm sure you remember that quite well.
How could I not? He talked forever.
Very, very fun guest, and one of the controversial subjects he brought up was the concept of legal sandbagging, or using equipment lower than a reactive urethane ball to bowl league and using a plastic ball to keep your average down. Now, this is a subject that is very touchy with a lot of people. We've talked about sandbagging in general on the show on a couple of occasions, and I have to say, after really thinking about this and looking at it, I wonder how many people actually use that kind of a strategy out there, and I wonder how many people try to keep their average down by simply, it's not trying your best, I suppose. I suppose it's actually legitimately just handicapping yourself onto another level.
And I think they do it for a reason, because there are a lot of tournaments across the country, amateur tournaments, of course, where they pay a lot of money, like $5,000 or maybe $10,000. Your handicap helps you to win. So I think there are a lot of people, unfortunately and sadly, I think there are a lot of people out there who do whatever they need to do quietly to keep their average down so they can get their pins. And of course, for someone like myself, I that's just disgraceful for me. But for a lot of people who, they're really good at it, I guess I have to give them credit for being able to being able to sandbag and keep it under the radar. Even though, of course, I find it despicable, to say the least, and just a slap in the face to all the people who've worked hard on their games to try to excel. There are definitely people out there who have created it. It's been an art form. They know how to manipulate their game, whether it's miss a spare here on purpose or whatever, to keep that average down and to get themselves in a position to shoot for some big money. So, the nature of the beast, they figured out a way to beat the system, like a lot of other people do in a lot of things, in scams and, how they scam the insurance companies and what have you. It's just another scam. It's just human nature. They just found a way to do it with bowling.
I agree with you, and very much so. I've never been one that could intentionally bowl under what I'm capable of. I just wasn't raised that way, and I think there's an amount of pride with my own personal bowling that goes beyond just dollars and cents. But that's of course me. But that also begs this question: is using lesser equipment a way to legitimize the bowling game again? Now that's a very controversial subject in itself, but we all know how much the equipment has changed the sport of bowling.
Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously, from a bowling company, a bowling ball company, they're just trying to better the sport, just like in all the sports, in tennis and in golf. The rackets have gotten better, the clubs have gotten better, the ball, everything is excelled. So, why shouldn't bowling balls get better? I mean, and I've said this before on an earlier show, you can have today's modern equipment, state-of-the-art equipment, and you go out there and make the lane really flat, 2-to-1, 1-to-1. You make the lane really, really challenging, and guess what? These bowling balls, they don't give you that much help. You have to do it yourself. So there is a way to take the so-called monster bowling balls out of play, and that is by the amount how you apply the oil to the lane. Because as great as these balls can be, that's as bad as they can be also if they're used in an environment where they don't play. They don't do you any good. You're better off throwing an old urethane ball sometimes on some of these horrendously challenging conditions. You actually might have a better look. So I don't completely blame the bowling balls. I know a lot of people like to blame the bowling balls. I just think that's just science advancing. And what you do to the lane, now that's the key. Like I said, you can make that lane so unbelievably challenging, and you see it every year at the U.S. Open. As you know, the scores are always on the low side. The best bowlers in the world average between 210 and maybe 220, and those are the best in the world. And the whole field usually averages about 170, 180 maybe. And everyone's throwing state-of-the-art reactive bowling balls. So what does that tell you? Then again, you take those same balls, put them on a house shot with great bowlers, and everybody averages 250 or 260. So what has changed? To me, it's the lane condition. It's the same darn bowling ball. That hasn't changed.
I tend to agree as well, and I think there's definitely a combination thereof of the lane conditions and the bowling equipment. How do you legitimize the sport? I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem, because they do have what they call sport conditions, which can be very challenging. And even for really good players, the scores are lower, even with the same modern technology of the bowling balls. It's easy to attack the bowling balls and say, because of these balls, it's made the game this, it's made the game that. It's really easy to go down that road. But I don't think that's fair, to be honest with you. I think there's too many other factors. I think making bowling balls better is just a part of everything else that people are always trying to improve things, whether it's in the car industry or any industry. You're always trying to make better products. So they make a better bowling ball, okay? But because there's oil on the lane, that's the key. It's where that oil is and how it's placed and how far and how much, and those are the determining factors. Like I said, somebody can drive up to my house and put down the greatest racing car in the world, and I got to jump in it, and I don't know how to drive it. That racing absolutely no good because I don't know how to ride in it. Well, and then the guy who knows how to drive comes in and he storms and he drives away. Well, I had a chance to have the greatest bowling balls in the world. If I don't know what to do with them or when to use them, how to use them, et cetera, then how do you blame the technology? So there's a lot more to it, and I just think blaming the technology of the balls is always the easy way out. I don't think it's that at all. I think the game has become challenging to know what pieces to use or what equipment to use at what time, that opens up another can of worms. That makes it almost more difficult. At times, I think the game has become more challenging, especially for the better players, in a more challenging environment. You got to know when to use the right, because you don't carry. If you don't carry, you're not going to beat anyone.
Sure.
So that, again, it's not the bowling ball's fault. I mean, people can walk into the pro shop and buy a professional model ball just like anybody else, but it's how the person uses that equipment. It's the same thing with golf clubs. It's all the same, you know. So, again, I think it's time for people to stop beating up on the reactive resin balls as the doomsday of bowling. I don't think that's the doomsday of bowling at all. I think there's a bunch of other issues that create problems for our sport of bowling, but I think it's time to, in my opinion, I think that people should maybe stop crying about the bowling balls and stop getting upset about how they're not the way they should. They make the game too easy. I don't think the balls make the game too easy. I think conditions and lane conditions make the game easier than maybe it should be.
Well, with that being said, that actually brings up a very good point. Take a quick moment here to say a big thank you right now. You mentioned learning how to throw the ball and knowing how to use the equipment. We had a fantastic donation come in this last week from True Bowler Adjustments, Gary Otis, who is bringing you our show this week. True Bowler Adjustments, a great little book that Gary wrote. I believe he's a silver level coach with the USBC. Been bowling a long time, knows a lot about the game. And I think that's a great read for people that are trying to build themselves up to that next level of bowling. Now, Eric, I know you had a chance to breeze through the book. What did you think about it?
I think the book's pretty good, and I actually know Gary. I've spoken to him often. I used to see him all the time at the place I used to work at. So he's very knowledgeable, and he's a nice guy, and he knows a lot about the game, and he enjoys giving his knowledge out to his students and people who will listen. And I think anybody who's trying to improve the sport or the game of bowling, I think you got to tip their hat to them and say thanks a lot.
Completely agree with that. I find it very refreshing because, as you well know, Eric, there's a lot of great bowlers out there that have become so disenfranchised with bowling that they don't really share the knowledge that maybe they should. You know, to see a guy like Gary, who obviously is a good player in his own right and, you know, could definitely be doing other things, taking the time to work not just with kids and not just with adults, but with everyone who's willing to, that wants to improve their game. I think that really says something about not only about him, but about what bowling could be if people want to take the time to care.
And that's true. And, you know, it takes a certain person to be a good teacher. And you have to love the game to teach the game. If you don't love what you're doing, no matter what it is, you're not going to do very well at it. And he's very passionate about it. And he's in a position to be able to do some teaching and help people. And he, like I said, there's a lot of coaches like that throughout the country, of course. And there's just certain people who really have a passion about it, and they enjoy giving their knowledge. Of course, you got to pay for it, like anything else. You know, when I go to the store, I got to buy my groceries. They just don't hand me groceries. I have to pay for my groceries. So, you know, when you take lessons from people who are skilled and they've got experience behind their name, you know, you have to pay for it, just like anything else. I mean, myself, you know, when I give lessons, I charge for it. Out of all my years of experience and everything I've learned from a lot of great coaches and all the years I've traveled and bowled against the greatest bowlers in the world, you know, I paid my dues. I paid my college tuition, so to speak. So for someone to create to get paid to do what they love, there's nothing wrong with that.
Completely agree with that, and I think there are many great coaches. I know yourself included, and people that have worked with the kids. We talked about how important it is to work with the juniors. I know I volunteer my time, and to me, it's one of the most fantastic experiences I could ever ask for. But that is definitely a big thing. So again, if you do have a chance, please check out Gary's work with True Bowler Adjustments. He's really a fantastic read, great person, some wonderful things on his website, which is truebowleradjustments.com. And, take your time, read the book, and you'll definitely be seeing them when we have our Laughlin Cup, which, by the way, we will have a link to the Laughlin Cup flyer in the description down below. We are getting our dates all together, and we'll have more information on that when you click below. So I'll tell you what, Eric, people are going to be getting excited about that upcoming tournament.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it this year. We're going to try to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit better, try to improve in a few areas, try to make it a really a special event. I'm not going to discuss everything we're trying to do with it as of yet because they're still on the burner, but it looks to be very cool, and I think people, if they get a chance to come out and attend, I think they'll have a good time. They'll see a lot of great bowlers, and hopefully there'll be a nice, healthy prize fund, and it'll be for a couple of great causes, and I'm looking forward to it.
Totally agree with you. With that being said, let's go back into our top 5 controversial subjects and highlights of the year. This one's actually directed towards you, Eric, and we had discussed it on the show that never got posted, which was your comment of why would a parent push their child into bowling, and we had a great response from Larry Dunn. Now, Larry is involved with Junior Bowling Today, which basically helps promote junior bowling throughout California, if not the nation. And he writes in, to your response was, the reason any parent would push their child into bowling as a sport, especially a daughter, is to have all or a significant portion of their college education paid for. High school and college bowling is growing, as you stated. You don't push your children to become a professional bowler. Education is first. He went on to talk about a little bit more about the benefits of the camaraderie of youth bowling and things of that nature. And I think he makes a very good point, Eric, and I know you've never doubted that at all, but you know, I think the concept of pushing a child into bowling for educational purposes has a lot of merit.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Like we talked about, there's some great collegiate programs across the country where if your child is good enough and they can acquire a scholarship through their bowling, then not only can they go to college and obviously learn to get their degree, but they can also do what they love as well. They could bowl for the college, and collegiate bowling is pretty exciting. I've been to a couple events, one up in Reno at the stadium, and they really get into it. I mean, it's almost like you're at a sporting event, so to speak, the way they yell and scream and jump up and down, and it's hard to believe that it's just bowling, but they really treat it like a major sport, and they're very strong about it, and I think that's a great reason to have your kids get involved with the game and sport of bowling.
Completely, 100% agree. You want to say thank you very much to Larry Dunn. If you guys get a chance, please check him out on his Twitter at Junior Bowling Today. That's at JR Bowling Today. Or his Facebook, of course, which is facebook.com/Junior Bowling Today. That's Junior spelled out JUNIOR Bowling Today on Facebook. Again, Larry is a great guy, a fantastic proponent for the sport, and especially for youth bowling. And you know, I'm very happy you wrote in. So, Larry, thank you very much for contacting the show. And, of course, I do want to say to anyone that is listening, you can contact us at bowlingevolved@gmail.com or, of course, on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/bowlingevolved. We do have bowlingevolved.com. Just to let people know, we did buy the domain. We are actually rebuilding the site as we speak. So hopefully that will be up here by the end of February as kind of our relaunch date. We are also up on bowlingbutler.com with Ricky Danis. Ricky makes the fantastic Grip E sacks, which, Eric, I know you and I both use. And tell you what, I really love those things. Biodegradable and made of paper. Who would have thought?
Yeah, they're very cool, and they do a darn good job.
So, big thank you to him. Now, we're going to come to one of our last 2 controversial subjects, and it's actually going to reflect back on our last podcast. One, which got us into, I guess you would call it hot water, if you will, was a comment that was written in about, is the PBA still good for bowling? Now, obviously, we've had a lot of debate and discussion, so I'm not going to revisit everything. But I will stand by what we discussed, and I know we talked about it a little bit in part 1, but we got into it more in 2 and 3. I have never said that I hate the PBA or that I want the PBA to fail. The only reason I'm critical of the PBA is that I love professional bowling. And, you know, I think that if people don't speak up about what they see, that there's no way that things could ever get better, because how are people going to know?
Oh, no, I agree. There's no way that the PBA is bad for bowling. That's almost kind of a joke when you think about it, because that is the pantheon of bowling. In other words, you know, you've got your recreational bowling, you've got your league bowling, you've got USBC tournament play, and then you have, you know, professional bowling, and that is what people still good bowlers still look to professional bowlers. So the PBA, I mean, it's the name, it's synonymous. I mean, granted, it might not be exactly what it used to be. In other words, the amount of tournaments per year and the lead into Wild World of Sports, etc. But it still carries a lot of weight. I mean, people, it's still that, it just does. So it's definitely not bad for bowling. We are just critical because I know what it used to be, and even the people who run it nowadays, they know what it used to be. And the trick is to try to take what it used to be, as good as it was. It's still, back then there was always problems, and try to put it in today's competitive sports world and make it something special. Again, it is very, very hard. I mean, it's just a really tough market. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, would put the economy as well on top of it. It's tough. There's no doubt about it. So, once again, we may cry about this and bitch about that or complain about this, but hey, you know what? There's people out there who are still running the organization. They're trying to do the best they can with what they have, and it's still on TV, and that's the big thing is, they're still on TV. If it's not on TV, they always say, then you don't know what's really happening. So as long as they're still on TV, that's a good thing. So of course the PBA is good for bowling. There's just no doubt about it. And I would just preface to say I would hope it would only get better and only try to get stronger, get better, give guys a better chance to make a living. I'm sure that's what everybody always wants. And when it comes to the PBA, hopefully 2014 will be always a better year for them.
Absolutely, and as I've said on many of occasions, I have been a fan of the PBA my entire life. I obviously did not compete on the national level like Eric, but I did compete on the regional level and had a chance to be involved with a lot of different tournaments, especially with my work in Laughlin. And, again, I wish them the best. I have never sat back and, like I said, wish bad things on the PBA. I just hope and pray that it could, get back to a point where it is a mainstream sport again. And I guess I shouldn't say it's not mainstream now, but it's not what it was, and I don't think anyone would really argue that. So, that's something I think we need to clear up, and hopefully people understand, we're not here to hurt bowling. We're here to talk about bowling. There's a big difference.
Exactly. There's no, it's just topic of discussion. Just like you listen to all these other sports talk shows, or, there's a show called, they're called the Sports Schmucks, and all they do is they discuss different topics. And there's so many of these shows around, and, there's always controversy. There's always a positive. There's always a negative. That's what makes for interesting listening. Like I said before, if everyone just agrees with everyone on everything, well, yeah, it would be the best thing, but it becomes kind of boring. You gotta have a little, a positive and a negative. And as long as there's competitive bowling and there's competitive people out there, there's always going to be something to talk about. And, people will discuss it. There's always pros, there's always cons, That's just the way it is. That's just human nature. So, if you get 10 people in the room, you may get 10 different opinions. And that's what makes it interesting, because if everybody had the same opinion, it would be a kind of a boring conversation. Not that the talk radio, so to speak, would be very not stimulating.
I would love to see like a Rush Limbaugh and, a Howard Stern have the same opinion on everything across the board. I think that'd be fantastic.
That would be like Fantasyland, but that's okay.
Well, and that's going to take us into number 5, and what was probably one of the biggest controversial moments of our show. We had the big thing about iGrind, and what got a lot of attention was the comment that was made, again, and we've talked about this on numerous occasions in regards to Josh Blanchard, and we've discussed this, and if anyone follows us on Facebook, we know Eric and I have both written about this extensively. I do want to say right now that, the opinions expressed on the show by whether it's Grady Merritt Foster or any of our guests are of our guests. We have the disclaimer talking about that in the beginning of the show now, and to be perfectly frank, it's because we want them to feel that they have a forum to them to voice their opinion. We may not agree, but we will talk about what they want to talk about. In regards to Josh Blanchard, and I have spoken to Josh on Facebook and offered an apology. The thing that bothered me more than anything, and I will say this, is that, the misconception that we were somehow supposed to inform people about the amount of money that was raised and whatnot. That wasn't what the point of the conversation was. And Eric, I know you had many fun thoughts about that whole thing and how that got blown out of proportion. And I want to say that under no circumstance was I trying to demean the bowling community, or were we trying to shortchange what was done for Josh. And again, I think the thing that bothers me more than anything, though, is that having this hit the news again, making him kind of have to relive what he already had gone through, makes me feel bad. And I want to say again on the show for everyone to listen, and Josh himself, we do apologize for that. And I hope that any journalist, anybody that does anything with bowling, whether it's a Facebook post or whether you're a national news syndicate, that you have to remember there are people behind the camera. There are people that are listening, that have feelings just like you and me, and sometimes if you are taking up a crusade for them, you forget that they have to relive everything once again. So that's my 2 cents. That's my little rant for the night.
Well, you're allowed to have a rant.
Yeah.
What I will say was, real quick, about the eye grind thing, all we did is talk about what we heard. And we talked about it. We had him on the show. He said what he felt. Whether we agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. We discussed it, and we talked about it, and that was his opinion, and that was it. And then we had Mr. Clark on there, and we discussed some things, and obviously he had his opinion, and that's where that went. And, the bottom line is we hope, I know I do, I'm sure you do as well, that somewhere down the road there is some help for women's professional bowling, and it does reform. They may have bit off maybe a little more than they could chew originally, but at least they're trying. At least somebody's trying. So I have to give them nothing but credit for that. Whether they maybe, even if they don't deliver, at least they're trying. I haven't seen anybody else really try to move forward and try. Granted, the PBA did try to help the women and involve them with a women's series, which Mr. Clark discussed, and that was nice. That was great. But I mean, it's still not the same as creating something for them maybe over the course of a year. Now, I know that's what iGrind is trying to do, or was trying to do. My guess is it'll probably get modified in some shape or form. Hopefully some sponsors will come through and help and help everything out. But, it's really hard. It's really difficult. But again, at least someone is trying. And, for Paula especially, I hope it does happen, because I know how hard she has worked to try to bring women's bowling back into the limelight again, because it's been gone for like 10 years.
Absolutely. And I wish them the best. I wish Paula and I wish the WBA the best. I just, it's easy to become cynical and become critical of anyone that's trying to do anything. If iGrind completely fails, then they completely fail. If they are able to succeed, they're able to succeed. My positive reinforcement is based on the knowledge that I want them to succeed. I want to see women's bowling back. And I from the bottom of my heart, I would hope any true bowler out there, whether you like a company, like an individual, like whoever, would hope that these companies, that these organizations would promote bowling again. And personal biases aside, there's no way you could hate on a company for whatever track record they have for the idea of trying to help. Now, if they're burning bridges and doing things to just promote themselves and, it ends up hurting bowling in the process, that's a different story. But the concept of trying to put forth an effort, I think that's commendable one way or another, and I support anyone that wants to do that.
And I agree, and that's the reason why when he was on the show, Grady, I enjoyed it. I thought it was stimulating conversation. There are some people out there who thought that maybe I or you or me or both of us went overboard to promote him, and it was almost like an infomercial for him. But you know what? When you come on our show and you're going to talk about, well, guess what? It is an infomercial. When Tom Clark comes on our show and talks about the PBA, I guess you could call that an infomercial too. Anyone who comes on our show and talks about their product, whatever it is, I guess you could say it's an infomercial, because that's what people do. So I never looked at it that way. He had his opinion. I agreed on a lot of the things he was saying. We only hope that it was the way people talk, and you only hope that it's going to work. So I didn't feel that neither me or you needed to ever investigate him and get my facts straight to see if he was telling us the truth, because I'm not Geraldo. Even if I have a mustache, I'm still not Geraldo. I'm not Fox News or Investigative Journal. That's not what I'm trying to do. We're just talking about what people are going to try to do to help things, and I've got to give him the shot and give him all the kudos for trying. So, and I know there's been a few people out there who basically said that we should have, dotted our I's, crossed all our T's before we start talking about stuff like this. And I couldn't disagree more with that kind of a comment, because that's not what we do. That's not what we're here for. We are not investigative journalists. We are just people who like to discuss and talk about bowling, just like you do when you get done. You go in the bar, maybe have a few drinks, discuss the night, or come in the pro shop and shoot the you-know-what about bowling. That's what we do. I'm not going to investigate or look into everybody I talk to make sure I get my facts straight. No. That's not the line of work that's not what we do.
That's not what, unfortunately, realistically and honestly, that's not what most bowlers do. I mean,
no.
Facts are very important, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously they're the most important. But at the same time, opinions is what makes bowling go around. And if we get something wrong, or if something is being, if one of our guests proclaims something that's not true, well, you know what? I'm glad that we have the conversations like this, because that means people are talking about what's going on, and that's what bowling needs. That's what our show's about.
That's exactly correct. So like I said, we can, and again, that thing that did bother me a few weeks ago when that came up, and of course now it's a month or so afterward and it's long gone, but just discussing it does kind of irritate me once again. But we're going to move on to the new year, and I'm going to try to be a little happier, a little nicer person. I'm going to take off the Grinch hat, and I'm going to be a happy person now, and I'm not going to let these little things bother me. I'm going to be, my New Year's resolution, I'm going to be a happy Eric for 2014.
Happy Eric. Oh boy, that's going to be, I'm kind of scared. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of scared.
And so you should be, because I'm going to be a happy guy. I'm going to even call bowling a sport. I'm going to really throw you for a while. You won't know what to do when I call it a sport.
Does that mean I get to be cynical Dustin for the new year? Is that going to be my new
resolution? Maybe we'll switch hats. Maybe we'll do that. They do that in wrestling all the time. I like wrestling. You like wrestling. They're always making different characters, and he's a bad guy, and then he turns into a good guy, then he's a bad guy again. Everybody wears different hats. Maybe we'll do the same thing.
Well, that means, Eric, that means you're going to have to do the intro to the show every week.
Hello, I can do the intro. I've been working on my best Dustin J. Markowitz impersonation.
I gotta hear the Eric Forkel intro. This is going to be our New Year's gift to our fans. I got to hear this one.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome to our ridiculously stupid show. No, I can't say it that way. I can't. That wouldn't work, huh? No, okay. You never know.
I'll give you an A for effort.
I'll work on it. All I got to do is listen to your voice a little bit. I'll get it.
We're going to shock the fans one of these weeks. It's going to be Eric Forkel presenting from the, what would we call it, the gem outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, Henderson.
Yes, I'll be calling from the rock that I live under in Las Vegas, Nevada. Actually, I live in Henderson. Yeah. I don't live in Las Vegas.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take a little New Year's special here. I want to take a quick second here and thank a lot of our supporters and our contributors, our fans. A few names that come to mind: Brian Hirsch, of course, one of our writers and our Phoenix arm, if you will, of Bowling Evolved. Great guy. I wish him the best in everything he does. The Striking Spotlight is his articles that he's done. Hopefully we'll have Brian back on the show at some point. I know he's done some things for us, and they just don't work out all the time. I don't know why, Eric. I blame you.
Well, of course you do. You're allowed to. You've got another couple hours to blame me, and then after midnight you can't blame me anymore.
Oh, okay.
No more.
Okay.
So we're going to have Brian on the show again. It's always fun, and we're going to try to do some different things for the new season, the new year, and hopefully it'll be a stimulating podcast radio, I guess you would call it, because it's, we got a lot of cool things in the works, and hopefully they'll all come to fruition, and it'll be an exciting 2014.
Absolutely. few other names I want to thank here. Here's a big one. I want to thank Tyler Hunsaker, who is now back involved with Bowling Evolved. Big news there.
Hey, Tyler, welcome back.
Tyler was our webmaster. He left to pursue a collegiate experience, and now he's actually back doing work with us. So welcome back, Tyler. Also want to throw a big thank you to my father, Brian Markowitz of Riverside Lanes, providing us an opportunity to do some filming there, the Laughlin Cup, everything else that they did. Fantastic facility. Check out bowllaughlin.com for all the news with Riverside Lanes. Also want to say a big thank you to Elite Pro Shop, which is my mom's pro shop. Go figure, Eric. Heidi Frederick.
Oh, that's just warms the cockles of my heart.
Elite Pro Shop in Fort Mojave, Arizona, providing a lot of bowling equipment and doing a lot of fantastic things for Bowling Evolved as well. Also, big thank yous to Storm Bowling, Motive Bowling, of course, all of our guests that we've had over the last year. Almost 2 years we've been on the air, Eric. It's getting scary. It's getting scary.
Wow. Still haven't got a dime yet, but that's okay. Story of my life, but we'll take it.
Of course, and everyone else that listens each and every week, there's a million people I want to say thank you to. I will say thank you also to Mrs. Shelley Forkel, because if I don't say thank you to her, she's going to hurt Eric at night. I know that. So I want
to hurt a lot of people. And I just, again, I want to thank the 10 people who listen. I know there's only 10.
Yeah, well. But they're 10 dedicated people. So
at least we have 10. 10 is better than none.
So thank you to all you guys. It's been a fantastic ride. I wish you all a wonderful and joyous 2004. Actually, I don't. I'm cynical, Dustin, now. I hope you guys all have a horrible 2014. Eric will wish you a happy and lucky 2014.
Yes, I will. And please, do not listen to my partner. He is so cynical and so ridiculous. Hey, somebody has to be the good guy, and I will take the role. I will take the torch of being the good guy. It is sickening, isn't it?
It is. It really.
The heck with that. I ain't being no good guy. I'm going to be me. I'm going to let you be good guy, Dustin, and I'm still going to be Mr. Happy. That's me.
You're a mean one, Mr. Forkel.
Don't you remember it. That's right. I still got my Grinch hat, and I'll still be putting it on.
I believe, before we go off here, I believe it's your daughter who was telling me, isn't your guys' tradition watching The Grinch every year?
Yes, my daughter always enjoyed watching The Grinch every year, and even though she's getting older, she still, when she comes by, we still have to watch it around the holidays because it is a tradition. Just like everything else in life, there's always a tradition. And again, we're looking forward to the new season, the new year, and I just want to wish everyone out there a very safe New Year's, and hopefully 2014 will be a better year for everyone, even you. And
hey, actually, by the time we come back on the air, I'll also be a year older, Eric. My birthday's in 3 days.
Wow, you're going to be what, 17, 18?
I'll be 19, actually. 19. Almost in my 20s.
That's what I figured. Yeah, and I'm going to be, yeah, exactly. That's right.
I'm going to be 19. You'll be 75. So
at least. I'll be 53. I'll be 53 going on 80. That's about correct.
Yeah, well, this will make you feel good, Eric. I'll be officially in my late 20s. I'll be 28 years old. There we go.
Wow, pushing the big 30. My heart bleeds for you. I can remember when I was 28, but that was a long time ago. The bottom line is I'm gonna try to line up some people that'll make our show interesting, and heck, I may even have people on this show that I don't even like, just to really make it interesting. Who knows?
Hey, I know. I would love to be sitting in on that, and I'll tell you what, I look forward to it.
Yes, we could have a really good spirited debate. We could thrash each other, and you'll just sit there and be the moderator. I'm sure you would enjoy that.
Oh, there's still people out there that I don't like, so you know what? I mean, that's a smaller list, I'm sure, but...
Come on now, you're turning into a Grinch. There can only be one Grinch on this show. There's only one Grinch. But remember, at the end of what happened, remember how the Grinch at the end, he turned into a good guy? Well, see?
That's true. Well, we want to thank you very much for listening to this edition of Grinch's Evolved, Bowling Evolved. As always, tune in to us. We'll be back here hopefully for the next couple of weeks with another fantastic show for all of our bowling fans. But, ladies and gentlemen, for Eric Forkel, I've been Dustin J. Markowitz. Have a great night and a wonderful New Year.
Happy New Year and good night.